Welcome, my family. Before we jump in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. I'd also love to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Please hype me on YouTube. Thanks. I was the one who signed for it. A soggy brown parcel sat on my porch at 7:42 p.m., the Portland rain dripping from the eaves in tired silver lines. I peeled off my scrubs, the smell of sanitizer and damp air clinging to me as the box drew my eye. My name, Mara Hensley, was written in looping black ink that looked disturbingly familiar, as if my own hand had forgotten writing it. No return address. Just me. I tore the tape open with a key. Inside was a single Polaroid. My living room, shot from the exact corner where the hallway meets the wall. The lamp glowed. My half-empty wine glass sat on the table, but the book I'd left face down had been turned upright, its spine perfectly parallel to the coaster. The timestamp at the bottom read 7:39 p.m., 3 minutes earlier. The heater clicked on, startling me. I stared at the photo until the edges curled in my fingers. Whoever took it had been inside. I called Trevor, my neighbor. "You see anyone drop a package on my porch?" Pause. "A van, no logo. Driver didn't look up." He sounded unsure. People in Portland mind their own business, but his hesitation told me he'd seen something he didn't want to describe. I forced a laugh. Probably a delivery mix-up. The joke fell flat in the empty room. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every shadow felt edited, rearranged. I caught myself glancing at the book on the table, still upright, like a quiet witness. The next evening, another knock, short and polite. A second parcel, the same sloppy handwriting. Inside, a cassette tape. I dug out my old Walkman, hands trembling. A hiss, then breathing, deep and close, and my own voice whispered, "You left the light on, Mara." The tape stopped with a click that echoed through the house. I unplugged my doorbell camera after midnight. It kept ringing on its own, and when I checked the feed, only static flickered, until one frozen frame showed a shape inches from the lens. By day 3, I moved mechanically through the hospital. I charted vitals, swapped linens, smiled at patients I didn't recognize. When I signed a medication log, the signature beneath mine, yesterday's, looked identical down to the slant, but I hadn't worked yesterday. That evening, I called Trevor again. He didn't answer. I tried twice more. On the third call, someone picked up. Silence. Then the faint hiss of that same cassette tape, looping the sound of my breathing before a soft click ended the call. I stared at the phone screen until it dimmed. His porch light, usually steady, was dark. The fourth night, I found my front door slightly open, the chain still latched, nothing broken. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant, like the hospital corridors at dawn. Everything gleamed. The dishes I'd left in the sink were washed and stacked. My couch cushions, usually crooked, lined up in perfect symmetry. On the coffee table lay another Polaroid. Me, asleep on the couch. My pulse thundered. I checked every lock, every closet. Empty. But when I passed the hall mirror, my reflection lagged by half a blink. I took a personal day. My supervisor's perfume lingered in the voicemail she left. "Mara, take care of yourself. Maybe talk to someone." I deleted it before she finished the sentence. That night, 7:42 p.m., another thud on the porch. Rain softened the sound, but I felt it in my chest like a heartbeat. I brought the box inside because leaving it out there felt worse. The cardboard was cold, slick as if pulled from ice. Inside, my hospital ID badge. The laminate exhaled a burst of antiseptic when I tore the plastic. The photo was me, but not. Her grin too wide, eyes pinprick dark. The corner of the uniform bent upward like she'd moved mid-smile. I dropped it. The badge hit the floor with a metallic clink that sounded alive. The mirror across the room reflected the scene, but the ID in that reflection still hung from her collar. I stopped turning on lights after that. The power bill could rot. Darkness felt safer. Around 7:40 every night I'd hear an engine idling outside. Steady, patient, close. Sometimes I saw the shape of a van at the corner, windows black. I began writing everything down. Times, sounds, smells. The pages blurred into paranoia. One morning, half my notes were rewritten in neat handwriting that wasn't mine. "You already signed for it. We're almost done here." I stared until the letters seemed to crawl. The police report went nowhere. The officer thumbed through my Polaroids and shrugged. Could be reflection glare. Then how do you explain the timestamp? He looked past me, bored. You ever think someone's pranking you? Happens online all the time. Online. As if the fear in my bones was something you could scroll past. At work, whispers followed me down the corridor. The night clerk stopped leaving coffee on my desk. My badge wouldn't scan, but someone using my ID number had clocked in at 7:42 p.m. Security footage showed a woman in my scrubs walking the hallway, head tilted, smiling faintly. I told them it wasn't me. The guard looked at the screen, then at me and said, "Sure." I moved through days like a sleepwalker. Packages kept arriving. I stacked them unopened in the hallway, cardboard swelling with moisture, labels bleeding. The air smelled like mold and rain and faint blood from paper cuts I couldn't remember getting. One box collapsed under its own weight. Polaroids spilled out in a glossy flood, hundreds of images of me, in the grocery store, walking home, standing at my window. Each angle impossibly close. Halfway through the pile, my stomach turned. The latest photo wasn't me on the porch, it was her, the woman with my face standing inside the house looking out. Her smile matched the one on the ID. The timestamp, 7:42 p.m., tomorrow. That night I didn't drink. I wanted clarity when it came. I sat by the window, the unlit street shimmering with puddles. The van idled at the curb, lights off, exhaust misting faintly like a living breath. Then footsteps on the porch, measured, deliberate. A soft knock that wasn't a knock at all, but the sound of a hand brushing wood. I gripped the edge of the table. "What do you want?" My voice came out thin. A pause. Then from beyond the door, a whisper identical to mine. "You left the light on, Mara." I turned toward the lamp beside me. It glowed. I hadn't touched it. When I looked back, the peephole showed nothing but the reflection of my own eyes staring out. I tried to run, packed clothes, keys, wallet. But outside, the street had gone silent, rain suspended mid-fall, every droplet caught in the sodium light like glass beads. The van's headlights flicked on once, brief and blinding, then off again. I stepped back inside. The air shifted, thick with hospital disinfectant and damp cardboard. My breath fogged in front of me. On the kitchen table lay one more parcel, smaller. My name printed cleaner this time, handwriting precise, confident. Inside was a mirror the size of my palm. The glass was warm. When I tilted it, my reflection didn't mimic me. It looked slightly to the left, smiling. Behind her, over her shoulder, stood someone blurred and waiting. I smashed the mirror. The crack bled silver lines across my reflection, splitting her smile into pieces. After that, I stopped sleeping altogether. The mirror shards on the floor caught light from nowhere, each one showing a different angle of the same grin. At 7:42 the next evening, I heard the front door open though the deadbolt was locked. Footsteps padded across the floor. My chest seized. I whispered, "Trevor?" already knowing it wasn't him. A shadow stretched from the hallway, long and patient. I caught the faint clink of an ID badge. The smell of antiseptic burned my throat. I turned toward the hall mirror. Two Maras stood reflected, one breathing, one still. The still one smiled first. The next morning, the hospital called again. "Mara, we need to confirm your shift logs. You've been clocking in every night this week." I stared at the phone until the voice blurred into static. My fingers were sticky with something chemical. When I glanced down, I was holding the badge, the altered one, its edges warm, pulsing faintly, as if alive. The smile in the photo had changed again. It looked relieved. I don't answer the door anymore, but I hear deliveries, soft thuds lining the porch. Sometimes I count them. 7, 8, 9, each one perfectly timed. The van still idles outside. The engine's rhythm matches my breathing. I've started losing time. Sometimes I find my scrubs folded, clean, my shoes wet from rain I don't remember walking through. I think about the Polaroid of her standing in my window, the way she looked out at the street waiting for something to move. I realize I've been standing in the same spot every evening since. Tonight, the air hums differently. The packages are gone. Someone must have taken them. The mirror by the door catches only darkness, but I see faint motion behind it, like a second room existing just out of sync. The clock reads 7:42 p.m. I keep the lights off. The van's idle softens to a breath. I feel myself swaying with it, matching its rhythm. And then, for the first time, I stop resisting. I walk past the hall mirror, carrying the badge in one hand. The reflection watches me step forward, then steps first. I don't smile. But as my hand reaches for the porch switch, I realize I've already remembered to leave the light on. I've been sorting mail for 21 years, long enough to stop caring about what people send each other. But that changed last winter, when the box came through the Portland dead letter office. No return address, no postage, no sender. It shouldn't have reached my desk at all. Yet there it was, with my name on it. That's how it began. Something so small, so bureaucratic, that I could have ignored it. But I didn't. My name was written in soft blue ink across the label, careful and neat, the kind of handwriting that looked practiced. The storm outside howled against the windows, that wet, heavy kind of Oregon snow that turns the air metallic. Inside the sorting room, the fluorescent lights hummed above rows of gray metal shelves stacked with packages that had nowhere to go. The air smelled like paper, ink, and dust. I was the only one left working that night. The others had gone home early when the snow started piling. I liked the quiet, the rhythm of sorting, the click of the conveyor belt, the predictable monotony. It kept my mind from wandering too far. My name is Evelyn Crane, Internal Distribution Clerk, Room 412. I never used to believe in omens, but that box, it felt like one. The package was small, barely bigger than a shoebox, wrapped in brown paper that looked too old to have come from any modern post office. The tape was yellowed, peeling at the corners. No postage, no return address, not even the official dead letter barcode that every piece of misdelivered mail got. Still, it sat there waiting for me. I sliced the tape open with my letter knife, expecting to find old junk, discarded keys, forgotten trinkets, maybe a love letter that never made it home. But inside was a bundle of sealed envelopes, each one addressed in my handwriting. Except they weren't mine. They looked like mine. Same loops, same way the Y in Crane dipped below the line. But I hadn't written them. The first was to Nathan, my brother. The second to Claire, my ex-wife. The third to Mrs. Warren, the old landlord from the duplex I rented years ago. Each bore a red stamp, return to sender. My heart thudded as I opened the first one. There were no words inside, just a handful of gray ash, folded neatly in tissue paper. The second held a photograph, torn in half, the edges singed. I could just make out part of my own face. And the third contained a note written in that familiar imitation of my handwriting. Stop returning what's already home. The words crawled under my skin. I reread them again and again, my reflection shaking faintly in the polished metal of my letter knife. I took the bundle to Janice, my supervisor, the next morning. She was a practical woman in her 50s, the kind who'd seen too many mishandled packages to be spooked by anything. I placed the letters on her desk. Probably a prank from archives, she said, waving me off. We've been cleaning out old bins, some kids probably trying to scare the newbies. I'm not new. I said quietly. She smiled absently, already turning back to her computer. Then you should know better. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the letters, the ash, the note, the way my name had looked like a mirror version of my own hand, only tighter, angrier. I dreamed of envelopes unfolding themselves in the dark, whispering through seams, voices made of breath and paper. When I came back to work the next morning, every undeliverable parcel on the sorting line had my address written on it. Room 412, my locker, my desk, even my home address. The others laughed it off, said maybe I'd pissed off someone in records. But Janice stopped laughing when she opened one and found her own handwriting inside. Pages and pages of her resignation letter, rewritten 100 times. 2 days later, she didn't show up for work. Her locker smelled like burned paper. Security footage from that night showed nothing except a shadow bending across the sorting floor, something tall and thin with too many joints. The cameras glitched when it passed, frames jumping. When it straightened again, it wasn't there. The smell lingered, though, a sharp tang of scorched ink and something metallic. I told myself to quit. I even typed the resignation email twice, but every time I tried to send it, the computer froze. Once it sent itself before I was finished typing. I checked my sent folder. It was blank. The next day, a letter appeared on my desk. Just one. Inside, a short message in that uncanny imitation of my handwriting. You still owe delivery. That night, the phone rang. When I answered, all I heard was breathing. I hung up. It rang again. The same breath, slow and steady. Then, after a pause, my own voice, recorded or imitated perfectly, whispered, "Don't burn what's already ash." I dropped the phone. It clattered on the linoleum. The power flickered. The lights above me buzzed. I started burning the packages after that. All of them. I took them out back behind the building where the snow mixed with soot, where nobody cared about a little smoke. I'd stand there with a lighter and watch the flames crawl up the cardboard, listen to the faint hissing sound the paper made as it curled. But the smoke never rose. It stayed low, thick and oily, clinging to the ground as if afraid of the sky. When I went back inside, the air still smelled like burning, like wet ink. Every morning, a new box waited on my desk. My name written in fresh ink, looping and deliberate. Sometimes the paper was damp, as if it had come from somewhere cold and deep. Sometimes when I leaned close, I could smell the faint trace of perfume. Her perfume. Claire's. I hadn't thought of her in years. She'd moved on, remarried, left Portland for somewhere sunnier. But one night, unable to sleep, I found myself searching her name online. The obituary was 6 months old. Car accident, out near Eugene. The same week the first package arrived. I stared at her photograph on the screen, the soft smile, the familiar tilt of her head, and felt something inside me give. When I came to work the next morning, there was a single envelope waiting on my chair. No name, no address, just a faint thumbprint on the flap. I opened it. Inside was a curl of blonde hair. Hers. And beneath it, one line, written in a hand that looked more and more like my own. Deliver her home. I don't know when the whispering started. Maybe it had been there all along, beneath the hum of the conveyor belt, behind the creak of the vents. The walls of room 412 seemed to breathe. When I turned off the lights, I could hear paper shifting in the dark, sliding against itself like restless skin. I started sleeping in the office some nights. Not because I wanted to, but because home didn't feel safe anymore. Letters began showing up under my apartment door, on the seat of my car, slipped into my coat pocket. Always sealed. Always written by me. Once I tried not to open them. I threw one into the dumpster behind the building. The next morning, it was back on my desk. Still sealed. That night, the phone rang again. Delivery pending, my own voice said. I could hear something moving in the background, paper tearing slowly, rhythmically, like breathing. I stopped sleeping altogether. My reflection in the break room mirror started to look wrong. My eyes duller, My mouth set in someone else's expression. The building itself felt alive. The lights flickered in slow patterns like blinking, and when I passed the sorting line, I swore I could see shapes behind the conveyor belt. Human outlines made of folded letters, jointed at the creases, shifting just beyond focus. I tried to show the footage to security, but the recordings were gone. In their place was one frame. Me, standing alone in the sorting room, staring directly at the camera, except my eyes were black, and my mouth was open, wide. When the next box came, it was heavier, wrapped in fresh brown paper, no labels, no markings. But the ink smelled sweet, like sugar and rot. I didn't open it. I took it straight to the alley, lit the match, and waited. The flame caught slowly, reluctant. Then the box began to hum, a low, vibrating sound that made my teeth ache. I stepped back, heart pounding. The cardboard blistered, peeled, split open. Inside was another stack of letters, all blank, except the top one. "You are the sender now." I screamed until my throat tore. The next morning, the box was gone. My lighter, too. On my desk sat a single envelope, my name written in familiar blue ink, only this time the pen had pressed too hard. It had carved faint impressions into the paper beneath. Inside was a mirror fragment, small, sharp, just enough to see my own eye. And beneath it, a smear of ash. I'm writing this now from the sorting room. The lights flicker, the snow outside turning to slush. I can hear the hum of the belt. There's a new package waiting for me, smaller this time, pale, almost trembling. I don't open them anymore. I burn them. I tell myself it helps, though the smoke never rises, just lingers thick around my ankles like fog that knows my name. Every morning another box appears. My name is always written in ink that hasn't dried, and lately, the handwriting looks more like hers. I took the night shifts because they paid better and no one asked questions. That was the excuse I gave, but the truth was simpler. I liked the silence. Austin after midnight had a kind of suspended hum to it, a stillness that wrapped around you like static between radio stations. Neon signs flickered, trucks whispered through empty intersections, and the city felt paused, half dreaming, half awake. I was 27. A freelance courier with a dented Honda Fit and an app that dictated my nights. My name, Jessica Alvarado, glowed faintly on the laminated badge swinging from my rearview mirror. Gas station coffee, the burn of sanitizer, the faint citrus of my deodorant, those were my constants. Routine had become my religion. It was close to 11:40 p.m. when the strange order appeared. Order 2000, unassigned batch. Then it vanished. The map flickered once, the coordinates blinking red before fading. My pulse ticked faster. Then the order reappeared with a single instruction. Deliver before midnight. Do not look inside the bag. Below that, 1909 Rosecliff Drive. No customer name, no payment ID. But the tip listed was $200. I hesitated for maybe 10 seconds before I pressed accept. The drive took me into a part of Austin that didn't quite exist anymore. Hollow neighborhoods where the trees grew inward, their branches fusing like ribs. The GPS recalculated twice, then froze entirely, the voice stuttering reroute, until it fell silent. When I stopped, I wasn't sure why. The address pulsed faintly on my phone screen, but there was no sound except the whine of the streetlight above. The house was wrong. 2 stories, peeling blue paint, windows boarded from the inside. The air smelled of mildew and electricity. I stepped out, clutching the insulated pouch. The paper wrapping was damp, the corners softening from humidity. The wax seal in the center bore a faint thumbprint, small, like a child's. Beneath it, block letters burned through the paper. Do not open. A car hissed past in the distance, and then everything stilled. I placed the parcel on the porch, snapped a quick delivery photo, and turned back toward the car. Then came the knock. At first, it was faint. 3 soft thuds from inside the bag. I froze. Another knock. Then a whisper, muffled but clear. "Please don't go." My chest tightened. For a second I convinced myself it was a prank, a Bluetooth speaker maybe, or a doll with a sound chip. But when the voice came again, fragile, pleading, it used my name. "Please, Jess." No one on the app knew my first name. I crouched slowly, hand trembling as I tugged at the seal. Warm air puffed out as if the package exhaled. Inside sat a tape recorder, old and scarred with melted edges and a child's bracelet, pink with crude letters scratched into the beads. J.A. The same one I'd worn the night of the fire. I pressed play. Static cracked. Then, faintly, "You left me there." I stumbled back so hard the porch creaked beneath me. The air thickened, charged. Every boarded window flickered with light, and behind each, faint outlines pressed against the wood, faces, smoke-blurred, whispering. My name rose above the rest. Jessica. I ran. The bag hit the steps as I bolted to the car, shaking so badly I missed the handle twice. The recorder still hissed from inside the pouch. "You left me there," it repeated, softer now, like a lullaby. By the time I slammed my door, every light in the house had gone dark. Morning brought denial. I told myself it was exhaustion, hallucination, something explainable. But when I opened the app again, the order history was empty. Every past delivery, gone. A new message pulsed at the bottom. "Deliver before midnight. Do not look inside. Different address. Same pay." I uninstalled the app, rebooted, factory reset. The icon was back before the screen finished loading. By evening, I'd convinced myself to ignore it. I poured cereal, flipped through channels, half listened to my roommate Leah humming from the bathroom. "You look like hell," she said, towel over her shoulder. "Working doubles again?" "Something like that." "You ever think about switching to day runs? You'd see actual people." I laughed, though it came out hollow. "Days don't pay for rent." She smiled and walked away. But I could still hear the faint ping from my phone on the counter. The same tone as before. When I checked, my stomach turned cold. The pickup location wasn't a warehouse this time. It was my old address, the house that burned 19 years ago, the one where Lila, my little sister, had died. The lot was fenced now, the ground overgrown with cattails and brittle weeds. But under the streetlight sat a single parcel. Brown paper, wax seal, the same faint thumbprint. The moment I picked it up, the wind stopped. The air around it hummed faintly like a throat holding back a cry. Inside the car, the package sat in the passenger seat, warm against the leather. I drove without checking the map. My body knew where to go. When I reached 1909 Rosecliff again, the house looked cleaner. Boards removed, curtains drawn, porch swept. Music drifted faintly from inside, a warped music box tune that made my skin prickle. I set the package on the step. It began to move. "Jess?" A voice called from inside. "You took so long." The front door unlatched on its own. The smell hit first, smoke and lavender detergent. My sneakers stuck to the floor, tacky with melted varnish. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, wallpaper peeling like skin. Somewhere ahead, a girl was humming. Off-key. The melody made my stomach twist. It was Lila's lullaby, the one she used to sing before bed when we still shared a room filled with glow-in-the-dark stars. "Lila?" My voice barely left my throat. The humming stopped. A faint giggle echoed, childlike and distant. I turned a corner and found a mirror that hadn't been there before, tall, framed in scorched wood. My reflection flickered. I looked younger, maybe 18, face clean, eyes wide and unhurt. Behind me, the hallway swam with movement. Shadows peeled themselves from the wallpaper, crawling toward me. They carried whispers. "Deliver us home. Deliver us home." I took a step back. The air grew heavy, the smell of wet ash filling my mouth. The shadows thickened until they formed faces, half-melted, featureless except for gaping mouths mouthing my name. The shadows surged forward, I whispered to myself, unable to move. They pressed against me, light but crushing, cold like damp newsprint plastering itself over my body. My lungs clenched, my ears filled with soft, overlapping voices, every name I'd ever seen on a delivery label, every order I'd dropped at a stranger's door. I tried to push through them, but the air had turned gelatinous. My hands slipped through smoke that felt solid, weightless. Then the mirror flashed. Inside it, my reflection was no longer my age. A child stared back, ash-streaked, eyes hollow, smiling faintly. "Why did you leave me?" the voice whispered again, but now it came from everywhere. Walls, ceiling, my own mouth. "I didn't," I choked out. "You were asleep, I tried to." The shadows closed in, burying my words. Through the press of them, I saw flashes, tiny packages on doorsteps, hands reaching out, 100 deliveries all leading back here. "You were supposed to come back." The recorder slipped from my pocket, hit the floor, and began to play itself backward, screeching, distorted laughter spilling out in reverse. The mirror pulsed once, bright enough to blind. When my vision cleared, the hallway was gone. I stood in a child's bedroom, neatly made bed, toys arranged in rows. Everything smelled of burnt sugar and plastic. On the dresser sat a framed photo, me and Lila, smiling in matching bracelets. The reflection in the glass blinked, but I hadn't. "Will you deliver me home now?" she asked, stepping out from behind the bed. Her skin shimmered between burnt and whole, like someone rewinding a fire. In her hand she held a parcel, small and still smoking. "I can't," I whispered. "You're..." "Then I'll deliver you," she said softly, and the light went out. When I came to, I was in my car. My hands were on the wheel, but they didn't feel like mine. The house was gone behind me, replaced by the empty road and a sky the color of static. In the rearview mirror, a face stared back, a child's, ash-streaked, smiling faintly. My own face was missing, erased completely. Only the dark outline of the seat remained where I should have been. I screamed, but no sound came. Only the hum of the engine, steady and patient. I don't tell Leah. She thinks I've been working double shifts. I let her believe it. But every night around midnight, my car starts itself. The dashboard lights up with a soft blue glow. The app pings, new delivery accepted. The same voice from the recorder breathes through the speakers. "Jesse," it whispers, "the payment is you. Will you deliver yourself home this time?" The steering wheel turns on its own, aligning with the empty road ahead. My hands follow, weightless. The city slides by, dark and hollow, every intersection leading back to Rosecliff. And somewhere inside the static I hear my sister laughing, her voice merging with the sound of tires on wet asphalt. The headlights stretch into forever. The roads are always empty now, and I realize I am no longer driving, I am the package. The hotel was nearly empty when I checked in. Off-season gray drizzle blurring the neon vacancy sign outside the Blue Haven Inn, Bangor, Maine. I told myself I'd come for quiet, though the word escape would have been closer to the truth. My name is Claire Donnelly, 31, recently divorced and too proud to admit that I'd run out of places where silence didn't hurt. The Blue Haven wasn't glamorous, just a squat two-story motel hugging the edge of Highway 9. Its sign flickering against the fog. Inside, it smelled faintly of damp carpet and lemon disinfectant. That peculiar motel blend of decay and attempted cleanliness. At the front desk stood Aiden, a thin young man with careful hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The brass bell on the counter gleamed as if polished just for me. "Evening," I said, sliding my card across the counter. He didn't take it. "We don't do cards here, Miss Donnelly, just keys." He handed me one, actual brass cold in my palm, a tarnished tag engraved, Room 217. "Complimentary room service tonight," he added, his voice flatly polite. "I didn't order any. It's already been prepared." He held my gaze a little too long. Behind him, an old clock ticked. Somewhere down the hall, a door latch clicked, and then silence followed, as if the sound itself had been swallowed. I took the key and mumbled thanks, trying not to sound unnerved. My shoes squeaked faintly as I walked the narrow hallway. Musty carpet, buzzing fluorescents, wallpaper patterned with blue vines curling around invisible stems. The door to 217 stuck before opening, like something resisting from the other side. The room was plain but clean, faded floral curtains, a single bed, a square TV bolted to the dresser. The smell of stale coffee hung faintly in the air. I dropped my bag, sat on the bed, and felt it sigh beneath me. The quiet was heavy, so complete it felt staged. Outside, rain pressed against the windows like fingers tracing glass. I showered, changed into a soft sweatshirt, and sat by the small desk with my laptop, trying to edit an article I owed the paper. The cursor blinked like a metronome, but my mind kept slipping back to Aiden's expression. That strange insistence. At 8:03 p.m., there was a knock. Not the sharp rap of knuckles, more a deliberate tap, tap, tap. When I opened the door, no one stood there. Just a silver tray, steam fogging the metal dome, and beside it, a small white note card. "Eat while it's warm. You'll need your strength." The handwriting looked like mine. I glanced up and down the hall. Empty. The air smelled of wet dust and detergent. Somewhere far away, a vacuum cleaner hummed briefly, then stopped. I brought the tray inside and locked the door. The lid trembled faintly from the heat beneath. When I lifted it, the metal was cold. No food, only a photograph. A Polaroid, slightly curled. Me, lying in this same bed, eyes closed, hair spread across the pillow exactly as it was now. The timestamp printed along the bottom read 7:14 p.m. I hadn't been asleep. Not at that time. I stood there for what felt like an hour, heartbeat pounding in my ears. I checked under the bed, behind the curtain, even the small closet. Nothing. Finally, I called the front desk. The line clicked, then hissed softly, the sound of static shaped like breathing. "Front desk," I whispered. For a moment, I swore I heard my own voice answer. "Eat while it's warm." Then the line went dead. The second knock came 15 minutes later. This time I didn't open it immediately. I just listened. The faint squeak of wheels, like a cart being pushed slowly down the hall, stopped outside my door. Then silence. I crept forward and peered through the peephole. Empty hallway. But as I watched, the silver tray slid gently into view from the left, as if nudged by an unseen hand. Another dome, another note. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. The note was shorter this time, almost done. Under the lid, another Polaroid, me again. Same room, same bed. Only now my eyes were open. And behind me, reflected in the window, stood a man. He was smiling. I dropped the photo. Panic came in waves, sharp, irrational, physical. I shoved the dresser against the door, dragged the desk chair over for good measure. Every sound outside seemed amplified. The hum of lights, the soft, rhythmic shh of the rain. I turned off the lamp and sat on the floor, hugging my knees, watching the shadows stretch and breathe across the carpet. At 8:45, the cart rolled again. Squeal, stop, squeal, stop. Then Aiden's voice, soft, almost coaxing. "Your meal's getting cold." I didn't answer. He chuckled low, then knocked once more, 3 measured taps, and rolled away. I waited an hour before moving. My phone had no signal. The Wi-Fi was listed as Blue Haven guest, but every time I tried to connect, it prompted a password field that filled itself with static symbols, black boxes, and broken text. By midnight, exhaustion won. I climbed onto the bed, fully clothed, the Polaroids tucked under my pillow like evidence of my own sanity. I dreamt of knocking. Endless knocking. Morning light made the room look harmless again. No trays, no photos, nothing. Only faint wheel marks on the carpet near the door. At the lobby, a different clerk sat behind the counter. Older woman, bored expression, name tag reading Margie. "Hi," I began. "I'd like to report something from last night. A man named Aiden." She frowned. "Who?" "The night clerk. Early 20s, brown hair, blue shirt." Her frown deepened. "Honey, we haven't had a night clerk in months. I'm the only one left here since the new owners pulled back on staffing." I stared at her, waiting for the smirk that would tell me this was some kind of joke. It never came. "Maybe a guest messing around?" she offered. "Folks wander." I wanted to believe her. I nodded, signed the checkout form, and left without looking back. Back home in Portland, the experience settled like dust. Irritating, impossible to clean out completely. For weeks, I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, imagination fed by loneliness. Until the menus started appearing. The first slid under my apartment door on a Tuesday morning. Thick cardstock, embossed letters reading Blue Haven Inn, room service menu. I tore it in half and threw it away. The next arrived 2 days later. Different hotel, Harbor Light Suites, Portland. Same handwriting, same line at the bottom. "Eat while it's warm. You'll need your strength." By the 5th, I stopped pretending it was a prank. I taped one to my wall, staring at the looping handwriting, searching for familiarity. The slant, the pressure, the peculiar tail on the Y. It was undeniably mine. That night, I dreamed of Aiden again. Only this time he wasn't smiling. He was standing behind me, whispering into my hair. "We deliver comfort, Claire. That's our promise." I woke to the sound of a tray being set down outside my door. When I opened it, there was nothing there, only the lingering smell of lemon cleaner and hot metal cooling in air. The rest of the week blurred into insomnia. I started seeing reflections where none should be, faces in glass doors, movements in the shine of my microwave, shadows pacing behind shower curtains. On Friday, I found a new note taped to my refrigerator. "Check-in complete. Room 217 awaits." My hand shook as I tore it down. My phone rang immediately. Unknown number. I answered before thinking. Aiden's voice soft and calm. "Room service confirmation, Miss Donnelly." I hung up and threw the phone against the wall. It kept ringing. Even after the battery died, it kept ringing. I don't sleep much anymore. The menus keep coming, sometimes slipped between my mail, sometimes folded into grocery bags I swear were sealed. Everyone has a photograph attached now, newer, closer. Last night's showed me standing by my apartment window, head turned just enough that the flash reflected off my eyes. This morning's was worse. It was of me sitting at my desk, writing this. Outside, I hear a cart rolling somewhere down the hall. Slow, steady, familiar. It stops outside my door. There's a knock, 3 measured taps, and a voice I know too well whispering through the crack. "Your meal is getting cold." I've been driving for Bright Route Logistics for 8 years, long enough to know when a route feels wrong. That night, Eagles Crest, Wyoming, was a frozen wound. The 2-lane highway shimmered like black glass under frost, framed by skeletal pines that clawed at a bruised sky. My wipers carved streaks of dirty snow off the windshield as the GPS pulsed green on the dash, whispering an address I didn't remember logging. 1420 Juniper Road. Recipient, Miles Turner. My own name. The first time I saw it, I laughed. Nervous. Hollow. A glitch, maybe. Dispatch had screwed up before. But the system wouldn't close my route until the delivery was complete. The last stop of the night, and I wanted to go home. The box sat on the passenger seat, plain, taped tight, smaller than a shoebox. The tape looked damp, and the cardboard bore faint fingerprints, darker than the rest, as if someone had pressed their hands into it after bleeding. The road narrowed into a dirt path. My tires slipped on patches of ice, branches scraping the roof like fingernails. The radio was static, my headlights swallowed by fog that shimmered faintly blue. Then, through the trees, I saw it. A house that looked half digested by the forest. Roof caved in, porch sagging, a single light in the window trembling like it wanted to die. I parked, engine idling, and stepped out into air that smelled of iron and rain. The silence was enormous. Even my breath sounded wrong, too loud, like it didn't belong there. I climbed the steps, package under one arm. The boards bowed beneath my boots. I knocked once, twice. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, a single room. Dust floating like ash. One table. And on that table, another package. Identical. My scanner chirped. Delivery complete. The box in my hands felt suddenly weightless. Empty. I peeled the tape. Nothing inside. My pulse quickened as I reached for the other box. It was heavier, cold. I opened it carefully. Inside, a small recorder and a folded manifest, its paper browned at the edges. The recorder clicked on. Static, then my own voice. "You shouldn't have come back, Miles." The words hung in the air like smoke. My breath caught. "What?" I whispered, but the voice had already dissolved into white noise. When I turned to leave, the door was gone. Where it had been was only a wall, old splintered wood slick with condensation. I ran my fingers along it. It pulsed faintly, like muscle. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. The air was changing, thicker now, humid, smelling of mildew and copper. My flashlight flickered, shadows lunging up the walls as if alive. Then came the sound, a distant rolling, faint at first, metal wheels on gravel. Not one cart, many, dozens. I froze. "Hello?" My voice cracked. "Is someone there?" The wheels drew closer, circling the house. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard the faint clatter of scanners beeping, doors opening and closing, cardboard tearing. It wasn't the sound of work. It was ritual. I lunged for the window. It looked out onto the same scene, the forest, the snow. But the pines weren't still. They were turning, very slowly, as if to face me. Then the hum began. Low at first, almost electrical. The box on the table vibrated. The sound grew until it filled the air, vibrating through my teeth, my skull, my spine. My flashlight fell from my hand, rolling in a dizzy circle across the floor. The sound became words, not heard, but felt. "Return to sender." I screamed, covering my ears, but the sound was inside me now, buzzing like hornets under my skin. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the table was empty, the room too. Even the recorder was gone. I bolted toward where the door had been and found it there again. I didn't think. I ran. Outside, the night was exactly the same. The truck idled, headlights blinking, snow fell in perfect vertical lines, soundless. I climbed into the cab, slamming the door shut, shaking so hard the keys rattled. I turned the ignition. Nothing. Again. Dead. My phone showed no signal. No time, no date. Just 11:47 p.m., frozen like the clock itself had stopped breathing. I sat there, engine off, listening. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps, right on the passenger side window. I turned slowly. No one there. Only the reflection of my own face, white, trembling, the outline of the house behind me. When I blinked, the reflection didn't. I don't remember deciding to get out again. Only the crunch of snow beneath my boots, the sound too loud, too heavy. My breath fogged the air as I circled the truck, flashlight trembling in my grip. The tracks I'd left moments ago were gone. I turned toward the forest and saw something move. A figure in a delivery uniform, shoulders hunched, holding a box. Its badge caught the moonlight. Bright Route Logistics. Another appeared beside it. Then another. Their heads turned in unison. Faces blurred, like water stirred too fast. But I could see their smiles. Thin, practiced, wrong. I whispered, "Who are you?" They smiled wider. Each held a box. Each box was marked the same way. Miles Turner. I backed away, shaking my head. No, that's not. But they began walking. A perfect synchronized rhythm. Boots sinking into snow. Scanners beeping in reply to one another. Lights blinking like eyes. The first one reached the porch, setting his box beside the door. The second placed another. And another. Soon the porch was stacked waist-high in packages. I stumbled back toward my truck, slipping on ice. When I looked up, the house was gone again. Nothing but forest and fog. Then I saw the red glow through the trees. A bright root truck. Not mine. Identical. Engine idling. Through the windshield, someone sat in the driver's seat, head bowed, hand on the wheel. I shouted, running toward it, boots sinking deep in the snow. When I reached the window, I saw my own face staring back at me, eyes open. The breath left my body in one jagged sound. I stumbled backward, slipping in the snow. When I looked up again, the truck was empty, the engine still running. I ran. Through trees that twisted into shapes I recognized from somewhere. Delivery routes, suburbs, loading docks, but warped, melting into one another like dreams stitched wrong. Every path led back to the same clearing, the same impossible house. By the time the sky lightened, I couldn't tell if it was dawn or something else pretending to be it. Snow hissed faintly as it fell, and the boxes on the porch pulsed, breathing almost. I could feel something inside them moving. And from far off, faint but clear, came my voice again. You shouldn't have come back, Miles. The forest didn't look real anymore. It was too still, too symmetrical. Each pine spaced the same distance apart, each trunk leaning slightly toward me as if listening. My boots sank into the snow without sound, leaving no trail behind. I kept walking, thinking maybe I could find the highway again. A signpost, something human. But the silence followed. After what felt like hours, I saw faint light through the trees. Relief hit me hard enough to make my knees buckle. A house. The house. Stood waiting. Every board slick with frost, porch light buzzing faintly. I'd run in a circle. The packages were gone now. The porch was bare except for one small box, sealed with dark red tape. My name etched into it with something sharper than any pen. I couldn't move closer. Every instinct told me that touching it meant surrender. But then a whisper cut through the cold, soft, feminine, close to my ear though no one stood near. Finish your shift, Miles. The voice was calm, almost kind. I turned, flashlight trembling. The beam caught movement, just a flicker between the trees. A figure in a bright route parka, hood up, head tilted. I raised my light, and she raised hers too, mirroring me perfectly. When I stepped left, she did. When I stopped, so did she. Only then did I see it wasn't a reflection. Her light glowed faintly blue, and beneath her parka hood, her face shimmered like static. Behind her, others emerged. A dozen silhouettes, scanners blinking in the dark. The sound of rolling wheels began again, a slow tide of metal and snow. I stumbled backward toward the porch. Stay away from me. They didn't stop. They moved as one body, their breath a single cloud. The sound of their boots crunching through snow synced like a metronome. I hit the door with my shoulder. It gave instantly. I fell inside, landing on cold wood. The box was waiting on the table again. Open now. Inside was my Bright Root ID badge, bent and blackened, and a slip of paper folded twice. Route status, incomplete below it, handwritten in red ink. Deliver yourself. Something broke in me then. A sound, low and animal, crawled up my throat. What do you want from me? I shouted. I finished the route, it's done. No response. Only the steady hum filling the air again, rising like pressure before a storm. The light bulb above the table flickered and exploded, showering glass across the floor. My flashlight sputtered out. I stood there in darkness, the hum now a heartbeat. And then, footsteps. Inside the room. Slow, deliberate. I pressed against the wall, chest heaving. The smell of wet cardboard filled the air, thick and choking. I could hear breathing, my own, and something else's. The steps stopped inches from me. A whisper brushed the back of my neck. Return to sender. I turned and saw myself. My face, gray, hollow-eyed, smiling with teeth too white in the dark. The double raised a box between us, holding it out gently like an offering. The lid was open. Inside was my own hand, pale, motionless, gripping a scanner still blinking red. I screamed. The light snapped back on. The room was empty again. The table bare. I was outside now, though I couldn't remember walking out. The trees surrounded the house in perfect symmetry again. My truck idled nearby, headlights cutting through the mist. I climbed in, numb, and the engine roared to life instantly. The GPS blinked, a single route loaded. Delivery address, 1420 Juniper Road. Recipient, Miles Turner. I stared at it until the words blurred. Then I drove. Snow streaked across the windshield like static on an old TV. The headlights revealed no road, only a white tunnel stretching forever. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. Then the GPS voice spoke, calm and mechanical. Next stop, Eagle's Crest. The world outside flickered. Trees stuttered past like frames of a broken film. For one moment I thought I saw other trucks through the fog, dozens of them, all driving the same invisible loop, each with a driver inside who looked just like me. I blinked, and they were gone. I gripped the wheel tighter. "No," I whispered, "you're not real. None of this is real." The voice in the GPS changed. Softer now. "Human. You said that last time too." I slammed on the brakes. The truck didn't slow. The speedometer climbed though my foot was off the gas. The trees on either side blurred until they were nothing but streaks of black and white. And then, impact. A sound like tearing fabric. A flash of red. When I opened my eyes, the truck was parked. The road ahead stretched empty. My breath fogged the air. In the passenger seat sat a new package, unmarked, unsealed. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe I thought it would break the loop. Maybe I'd already accepted that it wouldn't. Inside was a recorder, the same one from the house. I pressed play. My own voice crackled through. "Keep driving, Miles. They're waiting." I hurled it across the cabin, breath tearing through my throat. The sound didn't stop. It filled the truck, the air, my head. Outside, movement. The couriers again, standing in a semicircle at the edge of the light. Faces gone, uniforms crisp. Each one lifted a scanner. One beeped, then another. A chorus of beeps filled the night like laughter. I shut my eyes. When I opened them, the truck was gone. I was standing in snow up to my knees holding another box. Smaller, lighter. The label read, "Delivered to Eagle's Crest, Miles Turner." I dropped it, but my arms didn't move. My body acted on its own, sealing the tape, scanning the barcode, tucking the manifest inside. I tried to scream, but the sound came out mechanical, like a recording of someone trying to remember how to breathe. The snow fell faster now, thick enough to swallow sound. Around me, the ghost couriers turned and began to walk into the dark, boxes cradled in their arms. One paused and looked back, head tilting slightly, inviting me to follow. I did. I don't know how long I've been walking. The forest changes, but the route never ends. Some nights I see the house ahead. Other nights it's my truck, engine idling, lights still on. Sometimes I see the shape of my own body slumped over the wheel. I keep delivering. That's all I can do. The scanner always finds another address. The box always has my name. Sometimes when I open one, I hear things, other voices trapped inside, pleading, whispering, telling me they used to drive too, that they made their last stop, that they never made it home. One voice, a woman's, repeats the same words every night over and over through the static. Shift change, miles, time to deliver. The snow never melts. The clock on my scanner still reads 11:47 p.m. No matter how far I walk, it's always Eagle's Crest, always winter, always the next delivery waiting. But tonight, something different. There's a box at my feet, not addressed to me. Not this time. The label reads, "To your name." The cardboard is still warm, as if someone just packed it. I can hear faint breathing inside, steady and patient. I pick it up carefully, feeling the hum start beneath my fingers. The same vibration that crawls up my spine, the same one that means the route continues. I set it down at your door, and I knock 3 times. I deliver groceries for Quick Cart in Raleigh, North Carolina. Mostly night shifts because the roads are quiet and no one looks at you too long. The world feels safer when it's half asleep. Streetlights hum like old neon signs and the air smells faintly of asphalt and rain. Most people hate working nights, but for me, the silence feels merciful. Nobody talks, nobody judges. It's just the steady hum of my engine and the faint vibration of the cooler bags in the back seat. My name's Nina Walsh, 29, ex-chef turned delivery driver. 2 years ago, a grease fire swallowed my kitchen, my savings, and the life I thought I was building. Quick Cart was supposed to be temporary. Now it's all I have. That Tuesday night started like any other. 11 o'clock, the city half lit and sweating in summer humidity. I was finishing my last order when my phone buzzed again. An order that shouldn't have existed, customer unknown. Address, 132 Holloway Lane. Instructions, leave inside refrigerator. No payment ID, no tip line. Just those words, I should have declined it. Instead, I saw the payout, double rate. Rent was late again. Against the quiet ache of logic, I pressed accept. Holloway Lane was the kind of road GPS maps forget. The deeper I drove, the darker the trees became. Cypress and oak pressed close enough to scrape the mirrors. The signal flickered, my screen dimming until only the blue dot pulsed weakly at the edge of a blank map. When I finally saw the mailbox, 132 half hidden beneath vines, I killed the engine. The house squatted behind the trees, 2 stories of flaking white paint and black windows. A single porch light stuttered like a dying bulb. The grocery bag sat beside me, milk, eggs, raw meat, all standard. Yet the air in the car had grown colder, heavy with the faint iron tang of blood. I carried the bag up the porch steps. The wood sagged like wet paper. Quick Cart delivery, I called. Silence. I tried the knob. Unlocked. The smell hit first. Wet metal. Citrus rot. Something alive behind the sweetness. The air was so thick it felt like walking through breath. Hello? No response. I followed the faint hum through the living room into a narrow kitchen lined with cracked green tiles. Everything was old. Peeling paint, rusted sink. Except for one thing. A stainless steel refrigerator, gleaming and spotless, humming softly like a living throat. The delivery note repeated in my head. Leave inside refrigerator. I opened it. Cold air rolled out, biting the skin of my arms. The inside was empty. I slid the bag onto the shelf and closed the door. Click. Then click again. The fridge door had opened by itself. I reached for the handle and froze. Something shifted behind the glass jars in the side rack, a pale blur pressing forward until a hand flattened against the inner wall. Human, translucent, fingers bluish, nails faintly gray. Then, behind that hand, my own face fogged and colorless, staring from inside the cold, lips cracked, eyes dead open. The compressor groaned, deep and wet like a throat swallowing. The light flickered out. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. You're tired, I whispered. You imagined it. I turned toward the door, but the doorway had stretched. The hall extended endlessly, lined on both sides by rows of refrigerators. Their chrome doors glinted dimly, breathing in unison. The air pulsed with the same mechanical heartbeat. Condensation dripped from one open door, forming words that glistened on the tile. Thank you for your delivery. My phone buzzed. New order, 132 Holloway Lane. Leave inside refrigerator. The same message. I hurled the phone. The screen cracked, yet the app pulsed faintly beneath the fractures, its glow throbbing like a living thing. I ran. I don't remember finding the car, only slamming the door, gasping as the headlights carved through the trees. When I looked back, the house was gone. By morning, the order had vanished from the app. No record, no payment. I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, maybe a gas leak in that house. Anything but what I'd seen. That night, I promised myself I'd stay offline. Yet at 11:18 p.m., the phone buzzed again. Same address, same instructions. I deleted the app. It reinstalled itself within seconds. 2 days later, my fridge started humming louder. The sound was off, deeper, almost aware. I unplugged it, but the hum kept going, softer, coming from the walls. That night, I dreamed of Holloway Lane. I stood before the same stainless steel door, but inside weren't groceries. There were rows of brown paper bags, all labeled in my handwriting, delivered by N. Walsh. Something moved behind them, shifting the shelves. When I leaned closer, frost spread across the glass and the outline of a hand reaching for me. I woke to darkness. My fridge was plugged back in. I hadn't moved. The next morning, Quickcart messaged Lyle. "You clocked a delivery last night. 132 Holloway? You good?" My stomach twisted. "Me? No, delete it." He sent back a laughing emoji. Weird system glitch. At noon, a knock rattled my door. A new driver stood outside holding a small insulated tote. "Delivery for Nina Walsh?" "I didn't order anything." "System says you did." He left it by my feet. Inside were milk, eggs, raw meat, the same list. But the meat was moving, faintly pulsing. I dropped it into the sink and turned the water on full blast. The pink foam spiraled down the drain, gurgling long after it should have stopped. When I lifted my head, the fridge door was open again. A note waited inside. Customer. Unknown. Delivery completed. Thank you, Nina. Days blurred. My apartment stayed cold even when I killed the power. Every reflective surface fogged over. My breath lingered like smoke. The hum grew rhythmic, pulse, pause, pulse. When I covered my ears, I could still feel it through the floorboards. At 11:18 each night, the air thickened. My phone glowed from across the room. Screen cracked yet alive. New delivery. 132 Holloway Lane. Leave inside refrigerator. I started to wonder if maybe it wasn't the app calling me back. Maybe it was the fridge. On the 28th night, I gave in. The roads to Holloway were slick with mist, the trees skeletal silhouettes against a bruised sky. The house waited, porch light steady this time. I left the car running and stepped inside. The air was freezing, every breath forming crystals. The refrigerator gleamed brighter than I remembered. My reflection stared back wrong. My eyes rimmed in frost, my lips blue. I touched the handle. Inside, dozens of brown bags filled the shelves, each marked delivered by N. Walsh. Something shifted behind them. The compressor clicked. A face pressed through the frost, and my face whispering soundlessly, "You left the door open." Cold slammed through the house. Ice crawled up my shoes, anchoring me in place. The light blazed white, then everything went silent. I woke on my kitchen floor. Morning light filtered through the blinds. My refrigerator stood closed, humming softly. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it, until I saw the second refrigerator standing beside it, identical. Gleaming, unbranded, I hadn't bought it. Both hummed together, slightly out of rhythm, like two heartbeats competing for dominance. I ran from the apartment barefoot, shaking. I drove until dawn burned the horizon. But at the first gas station stop, a receipt fluttered under my wiper. Customer, Nina Walsh. Delivery completed. I tried to burn everything, the phone, the bags, the papers. But every morning the receipt reappeared on the counter. Edges unburned, smelling faintly of citrus and rust. The cold won't leave. The hum hides in the plumbing now, in the elevator shafts, in the silence between breaths. Sometimes I wake to find the refrigerator door slightly ajar, frost spreading across the floor in hand-shaped streaks. The deliveries still come. Invisible couriers. I hear their footsteps in the hall. The soft thud of a bag being set down, then the hiss of retreating air. I stopped opening the door. I don't sleep much anymore. When I do, I dream in compressor sounds. Sometimes I see other kitchens, hundreds of them, each with a fridge humming the same low note, each with a version of me unpacking a paper bag. A chain of deliveries looping forever. I think I understand now. Holloway Lane wasn't a place. It was a starting point, a cold chain. Every delivery driver, every customer, every fridge that ever hummed too long. All connected, all storing pieces of us. Keeping us fresh. I'm part of it now. It's been 30 days since that first order. The app no longer needs my phone. It's inside everything that hums. I hear it in vending machines, air conditioners, even in the faint whir beneath my heartbeat. Tonight I feel the cold spreading deeper. My fingers leave frost on the keys as I write this. The hum has synced perfectly with my pulse. I open the fridge. It's empty except for one brown paper bag unmarked. Warm. Damp. When I unfold it, I see my name written inside in smudged ink. Thank you for your delivery. The walls creak like old lungs. The air smells of copper and lemon. From below the floor, I hear other fridges humming back. Hundreds of them, their voices merging into one endless breath. I touch the refrigerator door. The handle is cold enough to burn. My reflection watches me with frost-rimmed eyes. Lips parted, waiting. Maybe I never left Holloway Lane. Maybe I've been in the cold this whole time, waiting for myself to come back. The light inside flickers once. A soft, steady glow, a whisper rises with the hum. Gentle, mechanical, familiar. Leave it inside, I smile. My breath fogs against the steel. And as the cold deepens, I step forward into the white. I remember the sound first, the hollow ping of rain against the windshield like fingertips tapping on glass. It was one of those Cincinnati nights that smell like wet metal and tired promises, the kind that drag you backward instead of forward. My name's Hannah Mercer, 34, freelance courier for Courier Now. Part-time job, full-time purgatory. I started doing late routes after my brother Evan's death. I told people it was the quiet I liked. That wasn't true. The truth was I couldn't sleep knowing there were packages out there waiting undelivered. The dashboard clock glowed 2:17 a.m., the hour everything always seemed to stop. The app chimed. A new route flagged priority. Hand deliver only. Recipient must sign. The address blinked. 412 Ashmore Street. It was an old part of downtown, where the streetlights buzzed more than they shone and the asphalt peeled like dead skin. When I arrived, the building looked abandoned, boarded windows, yellow city tape trembling in the drizzle. Yet the tracker insisted, "You are at destination." I should have marked it undeliverable and driven away, but something about the name on the manifest froze me. Recipient. Evan Mercer. My brother's name. My throat tightened. Maybe it was a glitch in the system. Maybe someone reused an old account. Maybe. I stepped out, my boots sinking into a thin puddle. The air smelled of rust and mildew. The front door hung half open, a dark rectangle in the facade. Inside, my flashlight caught movement, a woman standing just beyond the threshold. She wasn't hiding exactly. She was waiting. "Delivery," I said, voice smaller than I meant. "Need a signature?" She tilted her head. The beam of my light caught her face for half a second. Sharp cheekbones, eyes like wet glass. "You're late again," she said, her tone flat like a recording played too many times. The clipboard in her hand was already signed. I stepped closer, squinting. The name beneath the scrawl, Hannah Mercer. "I think you—" I began, but she pressed a small brown box into my chest. Her fingers were cold, clammy. "Deliver it before sunrise," she murmured. "Or it delivers you." My heart tripped over itself. "Who's it for?" She smiled faintly. "It always finds the right address." Then the door eased shut. In the truck, I sat staring at the box. The paper was damp from her hands, edges softening. My name wasn't on it anymore. The label now read, "Return to sender, 412 Ashmore Street." The drive back through downtown felt longer than usual. Every red light lasted a lifetime. The package kept shifting on the passenger seat with a faint rhythmic thump like something breathing. I rolled down the window just to hear real air again. I told myself it was nerves, post-trauma. I'd been fragile since the accident, since Evan's body was found in his delivery van on the same route, same company almost exactly a year ago. But when I glanced at the rearview mirror, the passenger seat was empty. The box had moved to the floorboard by my feet. When I finally tore it open, the smell hit first. Old paper and something faintly sweet like decayed fruit. Inside was a cracked jewel case. Evan's demo CD, the one he'd recorded before he quit music. Beneath it lay a folded sheet, a death certificate. My name. Date of death, November 3rd, 2024, 2:17 a.m. My breath stuttered. The engine stuttered too, then died. Rain thickened into a sheet of sound. I pressed the ignition again, nothing but static. In the flash of a lightning strike, I saw her reflection in the windshield, standing in the middle of the street, soaked, holding another box. The next moment she was gone, but the sound of tapping fingers didn't stop. By morning, I convinced myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing. Grief can do that, twist reality until it fits your guilt. I dropped the box, the CD, the certificate into the trash behind the speedway on 9th and clocked into my day job at the call center. Pretend normal, but that night my phone pinged again. Signature required, Hannah Mercer. Same address, same timestamp. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another ping. Then another. The vibration became constant, pulsing through the truck like a heartbeat. When I finally checked the app, the destination had changed. The blue route line now ended at my apartment. I didn't drive home that night. I parked by the Ohio River, windows fogged, listening to the low hum of the bridge lights. The world smelled like cold diesel and rainwater. I kept thinking about Evan's voice on the last voicemail he'd left. If it shows up again, don't sign anything. Promise me, Hannah. Back then, I thought he meant debt collectors. At dawn, I returned home. The air inside the hallway was stale, heavy with that faint sweetness again, like something fruiting in the walls. A small brown parcel sat neatly outside my door. No label, no tape marks, just my name written in my brother's handwriting. I didn't touch it. I kicked it into the stairwell, then locked my door. Sleep came in snatches, wet dreams of corridors stretching forever, walls peeling like bark. Every time I blinked awake, I could swear I heard my brother's voice somewhere in the apartment, whispering routes, times, coordinates. That evening when I left for work, the package was back on my doorstep, unopened, dry, waiting. I started driving to avoid my own address. Slept in the truck behind warehouses, ate at gas station sandwiches. Every night the app sent the same ping. Every night at 2:17. And then the glitches began. Streetlights flickering in sync with my blinkers. The radio cutting to silence whenever I said my name. One night I caught my reflection in the side mirror mouthing something I hadn't said. When I checked the manifest logs, the last recorded delivery under my ID had been November 3rd, 2023, Evan Mercer. The same night he died. It didn't make sense. Unless the system never removed his credentials. Unless I'd been rerouted into his loop. At 2:17 a.m. on the third night, I stopped resisting. I drove back to 412 Ashmore Street. The building was darker now, quieter. Rain fell straight and heavy, a curtain between worlds. My boots left prints in the mud that vanished as I watched. Inside, the foyer smelled of wet plaster and mold. There were still footprints leading up the stairs. One set old, one set fresh. Mine maybe, or hers. On the landing, I saw the glow of a single lamp through a half-open door. Evan's guitar leaned against the wall. The woman sat beside it, tracing the grain of the neck with one finger. "You're early this time," she said without looking up. I swallowed hard. "What is this? Who are you?" She smiled faintly. Delivery completed. Something shifted behind her, a shadow taking shape. A man's outline, familiar in posture, in the tilt of the head. My throat closed around his name. Evan. He stepped forward, eyes hollow, rain dripping from hair that shouldn't have been wet indoors. He didn't speak, just held out a clipboard, my signature already scrawled across the bottom. The woman stood. "He tried to stop the route," she said softly. "But the system doesn't like interruptions." I backed toward the door. "You're not real." "Neither is the schedule," she said. "But it runs on time." The box appeared again in her hands. Smaller now. She pressed it against my chest just as before. "Deliver it before sunrise." When I looked down, my hands were empty. When I looked up, they were both gone. The next morning, coworkers said I looked pale. I told them I'd caught the flu. I didn't tell them about the new package sitting on the passenger seat when I clocked out, or how, when I finally gathered courage to open it, there was nothing inside, just a single form, recipient acknowledgement, return completed. Under signature, Evan Mercer. Below that, faintly impressed like a second layer of ink, Hannah Mercer. Every night since, the pings continue. Always signature required on Hannah Mercer. The delivery never ends. It just reroutes. Sometimes when I drive the empty streets past the boarded windows of Ashmore, I see her reflection in the glass watching, clipboard in hand, and every time I sign the line, the name looks a little less like mine. Because maybe the system isn't broken, maybe it just needs someone to keep it running. And tonight at 2:17 a.m., my phone chimes again. Priority delivery. Recipient must sign. The name field blinks once, then fills itself in. You. I was 3 weeks into my new job at Everline Couriers when the accident happened. It was a Friday morning, gray and unremarkable, the kind of day that slips past without anyone noticing. The company van smelled like cardboard and burnt coffee. I had the radio low, a talk station murmuring about traffic conditions in Essex County. I wasn't supposed to be on that road, Old Hollow route, but detours from the storm had rerouted half our deliveries. I remember the sound first. Twisted metal and air brakes screaming somewhere up ahead. Then silence. When I pulled over, the wreck looked like a carcass in the fog. A delivery truck, one of ours, flipped on its side at the bend near the forest. Boxes were scattered everywhere like torn organs, labels soaked, paper peeled, guts spilling into the mud. My supervisor, Mason, came through my headset. "Recover anything salvageable, Nina. Insurance is breathing down our necks." So I climbed out, the wet air clinging to my skin, and started collecting what was left. Most of the boxes were crushed. Beyond repair, soggy cardboard collapsing in my hands, but one stood upright at the edge of the tree line. Perfect, untouched. It was wrapped in black paper that didn't reflect light, like it absorbed it instead. My flashlight dimmed when I pointed it at the box, a trick of mist maybe. The label was smeared but legible, delivered to Ms. Nora Vale. "Do not attempt redelivery," I remember saying out loud. What kind of address is that? But the fog swallowed my voice. Back in the truck, the GPS glitched when I entered the coordinates. The system lagged, then blinked to a route I didn't recognize, an isolated stretch outside Salem. Mason just said, "Finish it, then clock out." I wish I hadn't. The house sat behind a row of dead trees, Victorian style, slanted like the ground beneath it was sinking. Its windows were draped in heavy curtains that refused the light, and the porch sagged as if the house had been exhaling for years. I carried the package to the door. The air smelled like wet wood and something metallic, faint but present. Blood or rust, I couldn't tell. I rang the bell once, no sound. Knocked twice, nothing. I checked the time, 4:27 p.m., snapped a photo for delivery confirmation, and turned to leave. When I looked at my phone, the photo I'd just taken showed something wrong. The door behind me wasn't closed, it was wide open, and in the dark gap, a figure stood, pale, motionless, just behind my shoulder. I spun around. The door was shut. The porch was empty. My breath fogged the air as if the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in seconds. The box was gone. I didn't even think. I bolted to the truck, engine roaring before I'd fully sat down. By the time I reached the main road, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely shift gears. I radioed Mason. Static. Tried again. Same. That night back at the depot, my station light was on. A new box sat neatly on my desk. Same black paper. Same label. Only one thing different. The delivery slip now listed my home address. I didn't touch it. I went home pretending I hadn't seen it. But dread follows silence. At 2:14 a.m., I woke to a faint knock. 1, then 2, then 3. Through the peephole, I saw it. The same black-wrapped box on the welcome mat, paper glistening as though damp. I didn't open the door. I just stared until dawn painted the hallway in pale light. When I finally unlatched the door, the box was inside, resting on my couch, perfectly dry. Inside was a folded courier uniform, mine, but the stitched tag read, "Property of Ms. Nora Vale." I threw it in the trash. By morning, it was back in my closet, hanging where my spare should have been. I stopped sleeping after that. Every night, the radio in my apartment would switch itself on, static humming under voices that almost formed words. I'd unplug it, but the sound would keep coming, soft, like whispering through the vents. The next week, my truck's engine started itself at 3 a.m. sharp. The dashboard GPS flickered on, displaying a new route. It didn't show street names, just numbers descending towards zero. 0.03.0.0700002. I told Mason something was wrong with the truck. He laughed. Haunted by deadlines, maybe. But when I turned the key the next day, the route was still there, always ending at 0000000. I tried to ignore it, take regular deliveries instead. But each package I touched had that smell again, iron and rain-soaked paper. One customer, an older woman, flinched when I handed her box over. "Where did this come from?" she asked, fingers trembling. This wasn't supposed to arrive. That night she was on the news, found dead in her kitchen, eyes open, hands stained black like ink. I started seeing things in reflections. My truck window, the oven door, my phone screen when it went dark, always behind me. A shape, faint, too still. I stopped checking mirrors, my coworkers noticed. "You look tired, Nina." "I'm fine," I'd say. "You been driving the north route again?" "Why?" "Because every driver who takes that road quits, or disappears." One of them, a guy named Drew, pulled me aside after shift. "You know about Vale?" he asked quietly. "Used to be a regional manager, died here years ago. She lived in that house, you know the one? The foggy Victorian? No one's supposed to deliver there, but sometimes the system sends one out by mistake." He hesitated. "When it happens, they don't come back right." The next delivery day, I checked the manifest. One box, black wrapped, assigned to my route. I didn't report it. I drove. Because curiosity is a kind of hunger that kills slow. The fog thickened around mile marker 12, swallowing the road ahead. The radio whispered, "Do not attempt redelivery." The Victorian emerged from the white like a photograph developing. Porch light flickered, door ajar. Inside smelled of dust and something sweet rotting beneath it. Wallpaper peeled in curls, revealing darker paper beneath. A mirror hung crooked in the foyer. I caught a glimpse of movement that wasn't mine. "Ms. Vale?" I called out. No answer. The living room was furnished but wrong. Chairs turned toward the walls, lamps unplugged, a grandfather clock ticking backward. On the coffee table sat the first black box I'd ever found. The paper was no longer matte. It pulsed faintly, like breathing skin. A whisper threaded through the air, too close to pinpoint. "Finish the route." I stumbled backward, tripping over the rug. The mirror on the wall quivered. My reflection blinked a second later than I did, then smiled. Softly, almost kindly. I ran. When I woke, it was dawn. I was in my truck, engine idling. My phone showed I'd driven 97 miles through routes that don't exist on any map. The back seat held a package, black-wrapped, name unreadable under condensation. At work, Mason didn't mention the lost time. He just handed me new keys. "Good to have you back, Vale," he said. I froze. "What did you call me?" He blinked. "Your name, Nora Vale. The uniform on my body, it wasn't mine." The tag inside the collar was stitched in red, "Property of Everline Couriers. Issued to Ms. Nora Vale." Now every morning I wake before dawn to the sound of the engine humming outside. The GPS glows faintly through the windshield, always waiting, always pointing the same direction. When I check the mirror, my reflection doesn't move until I do. Sometimes it mouths things I can't hear. There's always a box in the back seat now, wrapped in that impossible paper. The address keeps changing, but it always leads back to me, and I drive. Because the radio whispers names I almost remember. Nina, Drew, Mason, and the last thing I see in the mirror before the fog takes the road again Is the passenger seat slowly sinking, as if someone invisible just sat down, waiting for the next delivery? I've handled hundreds of medical shipments, vaccines, organs, samples, but never one without a sender. The manifest looked clean, official even, but the line where the sender's name should have been was a blank stretch of white. Cryogenic transfer. Do not thaw. Deliver immediately to Unit 3, St. Maron Hospital. That was all it said. The box itself hissed faintly, exhaling cold vapor that smelled faintly metallic like ozone before a storm. Mist pooled around its base in thin curls, snaking along the concrete floor of the biotrans loading bay. My gloves frosted over where I touched the latch, the chill biting straight through the insulation. It wasn't my first graveyard shift, but something about that night felt off from the start. Denver was in the middle of another snowstorm, the kind that makes sound vanish. The city looked submerged, quieted under layers of white, the streetlights glowing in halos. The van's heater barely worked, the dashboard lights flickering every time I hit a pothole. I told myself it was just another job. That's what I always did. Keep your head down, follow the manifest, make the drop. The work was good money, and I'd been doing it long enough to know the rhythm. Hospitals never sleep, and someone always needs something moved from one end of the state to the other before morning. Still, this one was different. No sender, no recipient signature, no callback number. The request had come through the system as an automatic dispatch. No human input, just coordinates and clearance codes that shouldn't exist. When I asked the dispatcher about it, she laughed and said, "You're the medical courier, Lena, not the detective. Just drive." By the time I hit St. Maron, it was close to midnight. The hospital loomed like a ship run aground, half its windows dark, a few lights stuttering behind frosted glass. Snow piled high along the loading dock, undisturbed. Not even tire tracks. I flashed my ID at the security guard sitting in the booth, but he frowned at the clipboard like he didn't see the delivery listed. "Never heard of a Unit 3, he said, rubbing his beard. "We've got sub-basement labs, but they're locked after hours." I showed him the manifest again. "Look, direct hospital code, internal destination. Says urgent," he shrugged, "open the gate. Be my guest. But don't expect the elevator to cooperate. Power's been glitchy all night." Inside, the air was too still. Hospitals usually hum. Vents, footsteps, distant machinery. But St. Maron was quiet except for the low pulse of emergency lights. Red strobes blinked down the main corridor like slow heartbeats, bathing everything in a dull, bloody hue. The smell of disinfectant hung heavy, mixed with something faintly sweet like freezer burn. The elevator doors opened before I even pressed the button. I hesitated, scanning the panel. The floors were numbered 1 through 5, and below that a narrow strip labeled B. But when I hit 4, the light skipped to B3. The descent was silent. My breath fogged the stainless walls. When the doors slid open, the temperature dropped sharply. I stepped out into a corridor I'd never seen on any blueprint, and I'd studied plenty. Biotrans required couriers to memorize emergency routes for every hospital we serviced. But this one, it was wrong. The walls were bare concrete, slick with condensation. Frost webbed across the overhead pipes. Fluorescent lights flickered in irregular rhythm, some dead entirely. Down the hall, a sign hung askew, its lettering half scraped away. Unit 3. I wheeled the container forward, the cartwheels squeaking on the damp floor. The noise echoed too long, like the space was larger than it looked. A single steel door waited at the end, sealed tight, a green light blinking above the handle. When I swiped my clearance badge, just to test, the light turned white. The door unlocked with a heavy click. Inside, the air hit me like a punch, freezing, sterile, dense with the scent of refrigerant. My eyelashes clumped with frost. The room was lined with stainless steel tables, each holding an identical cryo box. Labels glinted under the pale light. Row. Lee, my name. Again and again. I stepped closer, pulse hammering. Each container was humming softly, vapor seeping from the seams. I checked the manifest again, hoping I'd misread, but there it was. My delivery code matching every other box in the room. I unlatched one, just a fraction, enough to see inside. Frost bloomed outward in a slow exhale. Behind the condensation, a shape took form. A human face, eyes open, expression slack, and not dead, not alive, familiar. Mine. My breath snagged in my throat. The lips beneath the ice moved slightly, forming silent words. When the frost cleared, I saw them. Return complete. I stumbled backward, heart hammering against my ribs. The sound wasn't just in my ears. It echoed faintly through the room, overlapping, multiplied like 100 whispering throats repeating the same phrase. Return complete. Return complete. I grabbed my radio, hands shaking. Dispatch, this is Dr. Rowe. I've reached the delivery point, but... Static hissed. Then faintly, Dr. Rowe, confirm receipt of specimen. I'm not... I froze. My voice came back through the static, slightly delayed, layered under itself. I'm not. The cryobox lights began to flicker one by one. The lids trembled, glass fogging from within. Faces pressed outward. All mine but younger, older, distorted, as though caught mid-scream. Dispatch, I need backup, I said, breath fogging white. This isn't... The radio crackled again. A voice that wasn't mine whispered, active sample in storage. The elevator at the end of the hall dinged softly, doors sliding open into darkness. I ran, my boots skidded on the wet floor. The wheels of the empty cart screeched behind me like something was pushing it. When I reached the elevator, the buttons were gone, only cold metal and the faint reflection of my face staring back. Except it wasn't mine, not exactly. The reflection blinked slower than I did. Its mouth twitched upward in a half smile. Behind me, the lids began to open. I didn't look. I just pressed my palm against the cold wall, searching for a seam, a way out, anything. The metal pulsed faintly under my skin, as if something beneath was breathing. A gust of freezing air rushed past my neck. Whispering filled the corridor. My voice, hundreds of versions overlapping, each slightly off, each repeating fragments of thoughts I'd had years ago. Don't forget the insulin delivery. I should have called Dad back. She said it was just a temp job. I sank to my knees, trembling. My vision tunneled as condensation formed over my gloves, freezing my fingers together. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the loading bay again. The container sat on the cart, sealed, undisturbed. The manifest still read, "Deliver to Unit 3, St. Maron Hospital." My hands were red and raw from cold. The skin split near the knuckles. I told myself I'd imagined it. Stress, sleep deprivation, maybe carbon monoxide from the van. I even tried to laugh. But the frost along my sleeves hadn't melted. I turned the keys in the ignition. The radio clicked on by itself. "Delivery confirmed," said my own voice, calm, detached. "Specimen active." The line went dead. They found the van 3 days later on the outskirts of Denver, engine running, doors locked from the inside. The cryobox was intact, temperature steady, label unchanged. Delivered by Dr. Lena Rowe. Status, active sample in storage. No one ever found me, but sometimes, late at night, I wake up freezing, skin prickled with frost. The window above my bed fogged from the inside, and on the glass, clear as breath, a faint outline presses against mine. Same eyes, same mouth, whispering through the thin frost, "Return complete."